Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we are checking out a brand new episode of Death Battle from Scream Attack. We have the Fullmetal Alchemist Edward Elric versus Aang the Last Airbender. Of course, Aang needs no introduction, the Avatar himself, and Edward, of course, from Fullmetal Alchemist, which today remains one of my favorite anime of all time. For those of you who have not checked it out, once you've watched this video, be sure to go and watch that series. It's fantastic. I don't often watch these videos unless I see two characters that intrigue me very much, and these are two that definitely I have to. It's a must see for me. No, in terms of the victor, it comes down to who should win and who will win, because oftentimes I think we've noticed it by now is when it comes to Scream Attack, while they do a fantastic job with the animation and the storytelling and all of that, it shows that their knowledge of comics vastly outweighs their knowledge of manga and anime, and oftentimes it's a bit uneven, and it shows. And I'm looking at you, Toph versus Gara. That was just a ridiculous outcome, but here we are. So here I think Aang will win, but Ed should be the victor. Now, I know that's not the popular opinion, but looking at it objectively, Ed is a prodigy who taught himself human transmutation from a very young age, much younger than Aang is. Human transmutation, and that is something that is next level. It's not something that anyone can learn, and he taught it to himself. Both him and Alphonse taught themselves alchemy, performed human transmutation, and later on he proved himself by being the youngest state alchemist. And time and time again we see him in situations where he is engaged in battle, and he learns as he fights. So he figures out his opponent's weakness as the battle goes along. This is something, again, in contrast to Aang, who is more of an avoider, right? Aang, while he has many feats that he's accomplished, that's more so through the Avatar state or with the help of friends. And also, not to say that doesn't happen with Ed as well, but I would go as far as to say that Aang masters the elements quickly because he has done it before in his past lives. It isn't so much so that he's a genius, so he quickly adapts and learns it. It's because he has learned it previously in his other lives. Ed, on the other hand, Ed fights immortal homunculi on a regular basis. Immortal beings, and a god by the end of the series. Immortal beings. And aside from the difference there, it's the world that they come from, right? Alchemy is so unpredictable and so versatile. It can create things that Aang would have no way of dealing with because he would have never encountered those things before. In the Avatar world, fighting is, and the way Aang fights as well, it's very traditional. It's very formal. It's a stance, and it's a stance or a dance or a movement, and it's breathing. It's very formal. In Ed's world, it's bullets and cannons and bombs and flash grenades and poison. It creates an added layer that Aang has no way of dealing with because he would have never encountered things like that before. There's no way for him to predict every single thing because he has never encountered it. He has never seen it. On the other hand, there's nothing that Aang can use that Ed has never seen before. There's nothing that he can use that Ed hasn't seen. All the elements that you would see Aang use, Ed has seen it in one form or another before, and he knows how to react and he knows how to adapt and build a strategy around it because that is what he does. He learns as he fights. Now, again, not the popular opinion. And of course, the Avatar state will give him an added advantage. And even then, I still maintain that Ed has the advantage there. And this is without even introducing the Philosopher's Stone, which I think they should, but I don't know if they will. But by the end, or if you've watched Fullmetal Alchemist, you do know, again, I mentioned before, Ed knows how to do human transmutation. He knows how to create a Philosopher's Stone. The battle can end as easily as him turning Aang into a Philosopher's Stone. It's against his vow that he has made. But this is a death battle. I don't imagine they'll be held by things like that here still. He could literally turn Aang into a Philosopher's Stone. Towards the end of this series, he transmuted part of his soul so that he could enter Pride's soul. Pride is one of the homunculi that he has to fight and defeat. and he entered his soul and could have destroyed him. He didn't, but he had the ability to destroy him from within his soul. Those are the things that is the level that alchemy is currently at, right? And these are the monsters that he fights. He fights supernatural beings and the immortal on a regular basis. That is not something that Aang is capable of dealing with, or accustomed to dealing with, or able to adapt to dealing with. No matter how many lives he has had before, he doesn't have that experience. So in terms of the difference between bending and alchemy, I consider alchemy to be much more superior. In terms of fighting ability, again, Ed is superior. And I mean, we'll come back, we can go in circles around, you know, how much experience Aang has, and fine. It still comes down to whether or not he is able to react and adapt to the situation as it happens. And it comes back to his formal way of fighting, his traditional way of fighting, something that even his past lives are you know, incapable of breaking routine with, because that is the basis of bending. It is form. It is, you know, it's following certain steps to fight, and that's something that is just vastly different from the way the world of the alchemists work. And so again, for me, Ed should win. Aang will win because of how, you know, that's just how it plays out. So that's my prediction for this. I know many will disagree, and who's to say? I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt very much that I will be wrong. That seems to be the trend that the, you know, Death Battle has been going on for a bit now. So I've been hitting the predictions quite accurately so far. I think I'm like 3 predictions so far in the last few Death Battles that they've actually done. I've accurately predicted them, and I think that's where this is going to go as well. So so let's check it out. Alright, let's begin. They've gone with the pixelated animation again, though.
Sorry, Momo, you're just too little.
The voice is actually pretty good.
Who are you calling a pet squeak, you stupid hairless kid?
Of course, that has to be why it started.
Nobody?
I'll show you.
Doesn't like being called short.
You know, there are actually a lot of advantages to being short. Like, you'll never hit your head on door frames, and,
I'm still growing.
At least they got Ed's temperament right.
Ah! Oh no! I'm sorry!
A classic misdirection. That's advantage Elric. Ha! Damn it!
Shine
How's this
cannon.
for small? What kind of alchemy is that?
It's bending.
Okay, no more clappy magic. Uh-oh.
No, my cabbages!
I won't lose you again. There you are!
When did Aang learn to do that? I've never seen him do it except one time with the Fire Lord.
Nice try, Shorty! Whew. Can't believe that worked. least I'm taller than you.
I was short.
You left me no choice.
KO! Looks like Ed didn't have a leg to stand on. Or arm, I guess.
Ed may have been more quick-witted and inventive, and he certainly had more combat experience. But Aang's bending abilities were far more versatile and readily available than combat alchemy.
Yeah, Ed had cool stuff like cannons and gun trumpets, but Aang was fast enough to react to lightning, which is way faster than dodging a measly bullet.
Recall how Ed survived an explosion that destroyed most of a 10-story building. By examining the size of the building and thus the volume of the conical explosion, this blast must have equaled about 30 kilotons of TNT.
That's cool, but Aang did way more when he carved up a circle around that city in Avatar State.
The force to blast such a huge ravine around the city of Yu was a massive undertaking. By measuring the width, length, and depth of the affected area compared to the size of the city, we found it would take almost 160 kilotons of TNT to pull that off.
More than
Why
5
they drawing
times
that
greater
comparison,
than Ed's
though?
best durability feat.
Ed didn't
so
block
Aang
that.
definitely had the stuff to crush Ed's automail arm and the rest of him.
Granted, Ed could reach this sort of power by sacrificing his life force. Remember Kimberly's explosion, the one empowered by a Philosopher's Stone, a blast worth 157 kilotons of TNT? That's almost identical to Aang's feat, and theoretically, Ed could have been capable of this level of power. Theoretically. However, a Philosopher's Stone uses many souls, while Ed could only draw from his one. Not to mention, drawing from his own life force meant his power-up had a very short and dangerous duration limit compared to the Avatar state, which has no such limit. But even so, Ed's
The Avatar
tactics
state
and
has been
creativity
shown
kept
to
him in
have
the fight,
limits, though.
Yet the Avatar's speed, power, and versatility was too
Speed?
much for him. Aang may be a pacifist in canon and would hardly kill anyone, but unleashing his full power is a sight to behold.
Just when Ed thought he had the hang of it, he alchemist the mark.
The winner is Avatar Aang.
Okay. Yeah, so that went about just as I had expected. It was very brief. Very brief. Oh, as I said before, I still maintain that Ed should have won this battle. I expected Aang to win, and I expected him to win with the Avatar state. And they are right in that, in terms of sheer raw power, Aang does have the advantage, but raw power alone doesn't guarantee you any win. Aang has entered the Avatar state before and lost in the Avatar state before, and I don't see why that would be any different here. They compared two feats that were, Ed blocking that power blast from Father, who's the villain in FMA, but Ed didn't block it. It didn't hit him, so he didn't block it. So I'm not quite sure why they're comparing that feat with Aang's. So just pointing that out, Ed did not block that. If memory serves, actually, his father blocked it, not him. So, and it comes back to what I mentioned before about the research not being on par when it comes to manga and anime, because they're comparing someone else's feat with Aang's. But that said, as I mentioned, in terms of raw power, Aang does have the advantage, but there are so many other ways that Ed could have dodged or deflected or transmuted something else. They talked about they mentioned that in this particular scenario, Aang would break his vow to not kill, to kill Ed. But somehow Ed wouldn't break his vow to not use a Philosopher's Stone, because why isn't he using one here? Ed is capable of creating a Philosopher's Stone. He knows how to create one. He could transmute Aang's soul into a stone. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, that he could actually enter Aang's soul itself and kill him that way. So there are a number of ways that this could have gone about. There are a number of tactics that Ed has shown that he's capable of using, none of which we see here. The alchemy that he's used here doesn't seem to be on the level that we've seen him use in the anime. I'm not sure where they're drawing their conclusions from here. For example, if we look at, first of all, they mention speed and power, and as I've said, power goes to Aang, versatility goes to Ed, combat skill definitely goes to Ed, and when it comes to speed, that definitely goes to Ed as well. As fast as Aang is, Ed has fought Pride, Pride is the first homunculi that was created in FMA, and Pride is basically the embodiment of shadow. In fact, of a shadow, a living shadow. In fact, the last time, or well, one of the encounters that Ed had with Pride, the only way he managed to stall him was to draw power from an entire town, a huge town, draw power from it, and use the light to ensure that he couldn't act, because without light, there is no shadow. And in that, Ed actually, he turned his automail to carbon in that fight, because of what he learned from another homunculi, Greed, so that his arm couldn't be pierced. Right? He could very easily have done that very same thing in the fight here, which meant his arm couldn't have been crushed by a rock. But for some reason, he didn't change the composition of his automail at all. And I'm not sure how Aang would know to target that particular arm anyway, the one with the automail versus the other. And the automail is on the wrong arm. How does that happen? So again, it's the lack of research that I see going into this. The automail shouldn't be on that arm. The next thing is, to come back to my point about Pride, Ed was able to react to Pride. Pride is a shadow. Imagine how fast, put in perspective how quickly a shadow can actually move. And he was able to go toe-to-toe with Pride on several occasions. When you compare that to Aang's speed, no, I don't believe Aang to be the fastest. And what they used in contrast to that was Aang's redirecting lightning bending. It's lightning coming from another individual. It's not a lightning strike from thunderous clouds or anything like that. It's coming from another person, and it's directed at you. You know what direction the lightning is coming from to redirect it. He's not reacting to it because he knows where the lightning is coming from, and again, it's coming from a particular person. It's not so. All these comparisons that are being done it's falling short for me. But again, as I said, in terms of raw power, Aang does have the advantage, but the Avatar state does have its limits. We've seen it several times. Aang in his normal state has lost to, I forget what the archers were called, but they were not benders, and they tracked him down and they beat him and captured him, right? And at this stage, that's nothing for Ed to accomplish. It just isn't. So I'm not on board with the outcome, but it is what I predicted. As I mentioned before, I think the manga anime knowledge is severely lacking when you compare it to their comic book and their comic book knowledge, and so it always seems to just, instead of balancing it out somehow, the victor just by default goes to the whoever it is from the comics. So the outcome is what I expected. I don't think it's the accurate one, but I mean, based on their analysis, I guess that's the conclusion that they came to. But I didn't see Ed going all out here. They mentioned him potentially using his life force to make himself more powerful, but that he wouldn't do that. He's done it at least twice that I can recall in the anime. He's used it once, as they mentioned, when he was injured by Kimli in a blast. He used it to heal himself. So he is capable of actually healing wounds by using a portion of his soul, in much in the same way that Philosopher's Stone works. So he's able to use that to heal himself. And again, he used it in his fight against Pride to actually enter Pride's soul to defeat him. So he used a portion of his soul to be able to transmute into Pride himself. So he's used his life force before to do numerous things, but he won't do it here to win a battle to the death. Why? Why wouldn't he do that? So there are a lot of weird questions, weird oversights, things that were overlooked here that I can't understand why. So I didn't see Ed going at his maximum. I didn't see him at his full potential. I saw him just barely scratching the surface of what he's capable of. If any of you saw the fight between Alphonse and Kimberly on Pride, that fight was an amazing one. And while it wasn't Edward that was fighting, in terms of alchemy, Alphonse is Ed's younger brother, and Alphonse is better at Ed in terms of physical combat. But when it comes to alchemy, Ed is the better of the two. But I'm just to use that as a marker to for comparison here. The way in which alchemy can be, if you've seen that fight that alchemy is used, he was able to use it to, once a limb was cut off, he could turn that into a weapon. He could create flash grenades. Using alchemy, you could set up traps and weapons in different locations that your opponent will not even see. Ed could create a poisonous gas grenade or something to that effect. You could create so many things that, again, Aang would not have any way of reacting to because he's never seen these things. But for the sake of the death battle, it seemed as though Ed was limited to just transmuting things that Aang can actually react to. So he was sticking to just transmuting rocks and things that Aang can bend or transmute to, but nothing outside of that, which is weird. Even though he's famous for changing his arm into a sword, for the most part, he actually creates weapons himself. And I don't see that creates iron or metallic weapons himself from minerals, and I didn't see that happen here at all. And why, I'm not sure. Aang can't metal bend, so that would have given Ed an advantage there. So why wasn't so I don't see Ed here. I see him just barely using what he has been shown to be capable of. But again, that is the outcome that we have. Similar to Toph versus Gaara, the knowledge that's there for the manga and the anime seems to fall short of what they know about the comics, and that results in the outcome. So I'm sure a lot of people will be, there are probably more Avatar fans here than there are really anime fans. Even though anime is getting popular, it's still very much of a niche thing. So a lot of people, either or maybe casual fans, don't know the full extent of alchemy and how far it can actually go. So still bummed that Ed didn't win, but that's the result that we have. Still looking, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Hopefully, more research is actually done into this, and we can see a different result. So I'd be happy to see Mustang go up against someone. That would be very interesting. I don't think we don't get a lot of Fullmetal Alchemist fighters in death battle, so I was glad to see this one, even though the outcome wasn't what I wanted. But it would be good to see Roy Mustang go up against maybe Fire Lord Zuko, or younger Zuko wouldn't have the experience, so maybe Fire Lord Ozai or someone in the Fire Nation. But that would be a fantastic battle. So make it happen. Mustang versus a Firebender from Avatar. That's something that I would definitely be looking forward to seeing. So be sure to post down below. Let me know your thoughts on this battle. I'm sure many of you disagree with me and think Aang should have had this one in the bag, and he did. He won. So hit like or subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.